Call meeting to order for the city of Plymouth. Regular meeting agenda or regular meeting, February 13th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Roll call.
Councilmember Crawford.
Aye.
Oh, here.
Voice.
Councilmember Salinas.
Here.
Councilmember Cornish.
Also here.
Vice Mayor Dunn.
Here.
Mayor Amoruso.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Yeah, let's please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know. City council regular meeting agenda for February 13th, 2025.
I motion to approve the regular city council meeting agenda for February 13th.
Thank you. Second? I'll second.
Councilmember Crawford.
Aye.
Councilmember Salinas.
Aye.
Councilmember Cornish.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dunn.
Aye.
Mayor Amoruso.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, now I'm going to open up for public comment. This is for anyone who wants to speak. That's not on the agenda.
My name is Greg Young. I am the president of the Zimdale Ridge Homeowners Association. Almost a year ago, I asked the city for a detailed list of all the expenditures that our community facilities district has had. At that time, there was a lot of doubt as to exactly what money there was and where it was and how it was being spent. And there was a large effort put into place to find out all that information. I understand we now know where the money is, but I'm here to request the same items that I requested last year in April. And that's where's the money being spent and on what?
Okay.
Thank you.
Go off, staff. Take that information, Greg. Thank you. I'm Swanson.
I'm Elizabeth Swanson. I am the owner of the Plymouth Hotel Kitchen and Bar. And there is a USDA rural grant that's due on February 28th. And I would really love for the city of Plymouth to apply for this. It would benefit so many businesses in our community. And I was willing to be an ambassador and volunteer my time. I don't know who knows me or not, but I do have a lot of experience in grant writing. And it would benefit all of us. I'm being completely transparent because I also want it to benefit the Plymouth Hotel Kitchen and Bar. I have a handout. I have a connection. I talked to the area specialist today. She sent me all the information that we need to go forward and told me, call her tomorrow if the city supports me. So Mayor Amoruso, I have these handouts. Can I just, it's an overview.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking at the enterprise grants. There's two different grants. It is for businesses of less than 50 employees and less than $1 million in sales for the year. But there's a bunch of things that we could do. I also am an educator for many years, and in this grant, it also includes training for adult employees or doing entrepreneur programs that the city could host. And I'd love to be a part of all of that and see us grow. So I have these handouts.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
Do
I'm not
you-
sure I have to answer, but I
That's
do have energy and commitment.
I love that, first of all, thank you for coming, and I'm curious, what exactly does this grant help with the businesses
So
specifically?
you can look at that.
Uh-huh,
Because it also helps the city, like there's a part of it that has a city, this is just an overview of this grant. So it depends on which route we take,
That's gonna be big.
sorry.
That's all good.
Sorry, Mayor Amoruso, but anyway,
That's awesome.
the grant size itself is from 10,000 to 500,000. And I was told that if we do a smaller grant, our chances of getting funded are better. And there's two ways you could do it, and you could just, that's a quick overview. It looks simple, it's not simple, but the deadline is coming on the 28th, and personally, if I can help and do this and move it forward, I do believe there's other people in the community that can help us in the city just to get it done, because all they're gonna do is say no, you know, I mean.
do you know did you find out about this? I'm wondering if this has anything to do with if it's still gonna be something we can apply for due to the federal funding
Well,
freeze that's going on.
she did
with the
tell me
USDA
that they
specifically.
don't know what their budget is for this year, so we should just go in and apply.
Okay,
Cause that's the thing, if we don't
Okay.
apply, we don't make that deadline on the 28th, then we can't do it at all.
okay, so
So
apply.
she did encourage us to apply, and then
Okay.
when they get their budget as well, then they'll know what they have to disperse.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're
I
welcome,
have a question.
yes.
Actually,
And again, we're not supposed to, I know, I was gonna bring that up, we're not actually supposed to. Have dialogue with you on this is the public speaking part, you
Okay,
speak,
sorry.
just listen.
I just
but-
wanted to bring it to your attention.
But
That's
I'm just
my
gonna bring it up, we've gone down that trail now, I'm just gonna bring it real fast. This is only 15 days, are you willing to take this on yourself? If city staff has a lot of work, I mean, I don't know, that 15 days out, we could have city staff.
I'm willing to try.
Yeah.
Okay, and also we would need
We're not
to,
doing that.
we would need to agendize that
Yeah.
and decide on it. And we're not meeting for 15 days, we would have to call some sort of a special meeting.
Yeah, let's hold off on any
Yeah.
substantive discussion just because this isn't on the agenda.
Right.
I don't want
Yeah.
to get too much back and forth.
Yeah, and I just wanna make sure she understood that that would,
Right.
we're not even meeting for another 15 days, we would have to call a special meeting. Marty would have to agendize all that, and so I don't know if this contract would work, if you would have come to us a month ago. I mean, I'm not totally behind what you're doing, you know, or what you're asking for.
No, we're-
You were, I didn't.
No.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, okay, I get it, but y'all know I'm just about Plymouth, and I need
Yes, you
to, I have Plymouth pride. And we need to do something, so anything we can do for our businesses on Main Street in general is really important to me. Like. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Anything from email?
Not that you don't already have.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
For one subject.
Yeah. But for the record, you don't have any general public comment.
Jump down.
No, you not.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what you said, there's no general public comment.
Right, so at this point, I'll close comment. Presentations, proclamations, we're doing 4.1, appoint members to serve on regional boards and committees. And the sheriff's ad hoc committee. We are not discussing the tribe tonight. So it'll just be what committees are on that page. In 4.1.
I would recommend that you go down the row and each person state what they're interested in. And ACTC, it's our rotation for ACTC. And they sent an email recommending that an appointment of an alternate also be made. So it would be a regular appointment and an alternate appointment for ACTC.
Does that have to be a council person or can that be a community member?
they recommend a council person.
Okay, just.
Right. That's how I would recommend that. I do have both policies with me in case a policy question comes up for both regional boards and the ad hoc committee. I brought both those policies with me in case a policy question comes up. But that's how I would recommend moving forward, is just to go down the line and each person lists their interests. We can make a list and then we can move forward from there.
And then Mayor, just make sure you take public comment on this too.
Yes. So I guess we'll start with Rusty. Is there any particular one you want, Rusty? Or multiples?
Yeah, I'd like to, the sheriff ad hoc committee.
Okay.
If I read this right, and, Amador Air Quality Control Board. And, the council of tourism.
Is there anyone else that would want either one of those?
Do we need more than one on those, or is it based on asterisks, how many we need?
It may be best just to get everybody's stated desire.
Just desire, then
And then
go back
you
and
can-
hash it out?
And then, and take public comment and then hash it out.
Okay. Very much. Okay, Nicholas and Wendy, I'll go with you next.
Okay, I would be interested in the tourism as well, if they need to, if not, that's fine. Do that. The OES Disaster and Disaster Council. And I can do ACRA if nobody else wants to do it. That's a tough time for me of the day, but I think it's an important one we'd be a part of, so I'm willing to put my name out there.
I think you'd be good on that, Greg.
Thanks, Peter.
I was like,
Um,
I was having it for a long time, but it's good.
and then community events and public relations. And yep, I think that's it.
I would like to partake with the ACTC. In the Amador Abandoned Vehicle Authority. And I'm pretty limited due to my day job.
What was the other one?
The Amador Abandoned Vehicle Authority.
Okay.
And ACTC.
Okay.
And I think that's it right now. I don't know how often or when the Amador Fire Protection Authority meets. But if it's an evening thing, I can usually make it.
It's usually midday.
Okay, never mind. That'll be all.
Is that-
I don't see the sheriff negotiations that often.
It's on the front page. That's what.
Oh, I can start again. Front page.
It's just listed on the staff report that it's needed.
Okay.
Okay, as a recommendation.
So I'd be interested in that. Sheriff negotiations ad hoc, LAFCO, Amador Fire Protection Authority. Here.
Vice Mayor Nunn, we're not in the rotation for LAFCO right now.
Okay, you have it on the list, so I just. I see it's not on there, but, okay, so we took that one.
Do we know when the sheriff's meetings are? Whether it's in,
We met with them today, and so the next meeting has not been scheduled at this point.
but they're also doing the dating. One like,
Yes.
okay, thanks.
Yeah. Might be able to do a couple. Probably the ECTC. Oh, wait, no, it's second, Wednesday, it's sixth. What are they?
No,
Second, fourth. Oh, Wednesday, never mind. Yeah, I could do the ACTC with them. As well as.
And that's the one that needed a rotation. Rebecca, ADCC. Is that one you had?
The sheriff negotiation. Oh,
In
here, I had leftover, which said we're not in rotation,
Right.
so, AFPA. ACTC. And, I would do the OES disaster council also. Okay. And the, sheriff's negotiations.
Who else had the sheriff's ad hoc? Rusty?
Rusty.
Yeah.
The Rusty. And I can do solid waste management regional, solid waste task force. I was already on those before, I'll just continue on them. I also was interested in the abandoned vehicle, but Holger, you can have it, no big deal.
I'll share.
I also was interested in the LES. We have 3 people for that, so
we have 3 people. There's no one on there on my list.
you, well, yeah, LES.
When you doing it,
You said you would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Wendy and Don,
Yeah,
I
Peter.
didn't hear you.
Yeah,
say
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Sorry,
and I put my name down first, because I really, that's what I'm.
so sorry. I
That's
didn't
all
hear
right.
you.
So we have 3 people, so I'm not, it's not that, you're shattering me, so you guys can pick between you two.
We need 1 or 2. 2. You do.
You need 2 for that?
No.
I just one.
Oh, alright, you wanna do it or you want me to do it?
Well, I think we're gonna do that next.
Yeah, we have to have a public comment.
Yeah.
So it looks like we have a consensus.
Are you done?
Ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're open up for public comment and the public. People speak. Other questions? Anything from the internets?
No written public comment.
No written, no, sorry, no written. public comment. Okay, so I close public comment. So. We need 2 people. For ATC, so it sounds like we have those taken care of, right? Does it matter who is the primary, do you guys do care who's the primary and who's the
Over department.
and you be secretary? So,
Do we have to vote on each one of these? Or just we can,
If there is consensus on it, then you do just one omnibus vote for all of it.
got it,
Just I wanna make sure that.
Yeah.
everybody,
I would suggest that
Run.
the city manager or the mayor run through it first, and if everyone agrees on it, we can do a motion based on that.
that's kind of what I was just doing.
sorry.
Do you want to go through it? I don't care who goes through it.
No, go through it.
Okay, so then the next one was Don for LAFCO.
No, that's not right.
That's
It's
the,
not
That's
in-
rotation.
Oh, that's right,
It's
that's
not in-
switched out. Hammer abandoned vehicle, Peter Holder, Holder. Sorry, yeah, that's, no, I know. But we're the 2 that put in for it.
I mean, I'm not gonna arm wrestle before it, so.
No, you can do it.
Sure.
Okay, I'll order for that. Now Eric Raleigh is gonna be Rusty? Yeah, because he's on. Hanover County Tourism is Wendy and Rusty.
Rusty, you wanna arm wrestle?
I want to see it.
No, why don't you take it, because it makes more, to me, it makes more sense for you to have it because of the industry you're in.
Yeah, I'll take it, that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Great.
So
Hanover Fire.
Rusty.
Hanover Recreation, Wendy.
Yeah.
Latest disaster, now this is one that. All three of us put it, so 3 people put it for it.
Wait, what about this intergovernmental committee? There's nobody's name there.
No.
I can do it. It doesn't, it's just me that's needed. I'll do it.
Okay.
Just so we have a name.
That's fine. So, who really desires? Oh, yes.
You wanna do it, Dawn? Or do you want me to? Does anyone know when they meet quarterly? Is it in the middle of the day?
It's in the morning.
It's in the morning. Is that gonna be a problem for you, Dawn? With work
Right, I can take that off if I had to, I mean, now, but I mean,
quarterly?
yeah, just.
It's up to
It's
you.
up to you.
Well, you're the one that I have the flexible job. So you,
I can do it.
okay, Dawn will do it.
And then, Public Relations Committee events, Wendy,
Yes, I'll take it.
and then, Solid Waste Task Force, me.
What about this RTMF? Margaret, I see a name on there. How often, when, what time
It's during the day. It's during the day,
during the day?
yeah.
It looks like we should have somebody up here on that board, though, correct? On that ad hoc.
No.
committee board.
I don't.
Yeah, I can attend and make reports to the
Report.
council, it's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Well, this one here, Sutter Creek and Jackson.
Yeah.
So Arch.
Yeah, well, that's that one, but,
Oh, we didn't do rapid transit.
yeah, that's what we're talking about.
No, we didn't.
This one, Denver Rapid Transit, that's a nice one.
On the arts, the Amateur Rapid Transit, do they need anybody? I don't see the estimates.
I'm not sure. I can reach out to them
Confirm.
tomorrow and confirm.
Yeah, Don, to your point, I will say that it meets on the same day as ACTC, which I would love to stay on.
So I thought it was third, yeah, but ACTC, second Wednesday of each month,
Third
that one's
Wednesday.
third Wednesday.
Right,
So,
no, they're both the third Wednesday,
No,
no,
it's third Wednesday,
wait a minute,
it's third Wednesday,
each third Wednesday.
one at 6 and one at 7.
well, one of them's a typo.
Oh, okay, I was looking at the one above it, I'm sorry.
It's the-
Okay. This one is second Wednesday at 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
And that one is third. Wednesday.
There's gotta be a typo, because there's two different dates, two different times. And
For the ACTC.
for the ACTC, there.
Well, what
there's
is a
no
round
problem.
table?
Yeah, that's the problem, there's two eight, they're two different things, so.
Right, they are two different.
Two
Oh,
different things, yeah,
They are.
one the round table, and the other one is
Yeah,
the, yeah. See what you expect on the arts.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean.
If
Be
we-
there now for
Mayor, if we could make a provisional appointment to the Amarillo Rapid Transit. And if we don't need the appointment, then we don't need the appointment, but at least if we make a provisional
I think
appointment.
you already have Holger.
No, because I would like to stay with the ACTC, which meets at the same time
Oh, gotcha.
as the arts. Yeah. So this might be something we can discuss once she gets confirmation if we need somebody or not.
Well, I would just, if you're able to, just make a provisional appointment tonight,
There you
make an appointment, and then if they don't meet or the person is not able to do it, we'll just come back and amend that specific appointment, but since we're here and it's on the agenda, we can make it tonight.
Since we're having troubles with this, I'll just say, you could put me provisionally, but evenings are really bad for me. Just like
We'll figure it
daytime,
out. That's fine. Then we'll
daytime's
figure it
bad
out.
for others.
Yeah, that's fine.
So just put me on there so we can move on, but
These all meet at the county building? Or are they meeting somewhere else?
Turn your microphone on.
No. Do these all meet at the county building or somewhere else? Yeah, the our ACT.
Most of them are at the county building.
Okay, I'm just looking at these two are only an hour apart of their same boat.
Oh. But how long do they last? How long do they last? I mean, yeah, I can jump around between
hour,
between arts and ACTC, that's a thing.
I know, I don't think.
yeah, but I
Is it
told her, I
social
thought if you're already gonna be there, you just stay there.
I know if you do both. of
As
those,
long as
you get the
I
point.
can close shop at work and get to Jackson in time, because we're open till 5 and
Oh.
5:30 is pushing for me to get out of there.
I second Wendy's motion.
ACTC is probably at Sutter Creek at their facility.
I would think you're right.
Just
Right
leave,
on the bus station.
just leave
You
me
got
on
the
the
base
arts
part.
thing and
Yeah.
let's move
You can
forward,
make it.
let's move on, we're taking too much time, in my opinion.
Okay,
I
Wendy
agree.
stays on.
So the only last thing we have to do is actually the sheriff's ad hoc. So there's Rusty, me, and Don, we need 2 people. I really, since I've already started the process today as the provisional person, basically. I'd like to stay on there, so that's all right with you guys. Then depends on Rusty or Don, or if you guys.
Yeah, I'd like to do that one, so I don't know.
What do you think, Rusty?
about?
Your heart set on that?
Rusty gonna yield?
That was the top one I had, but if you want to take it, take it.
On whistle.
Yeah, I'd like to do that one. Yeah, I'd be there. One of those, interested in that one.
During the day. Meetings are during the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's really.
Is that gonna be?
There when?
They're during the day. Are they like monthly? Weekly, how often?
They're whenever the 2 staff people schedule them. So like this meeting was scheduled 4 days ago for today.
There's not a set schedule, you just schedule it on an.
I don't ever worse out,
basis.
yeah.
Is that gonna be tough for you to Dawn?
I'm sure they'll work out.
Well, can we have a backup?
The reason we're going so quickly is because the contract ends the last day of March. And so we have to get this contract wrapped up. And so that's why the meetings are scheduled.
Randomly.
Yes.
I just, my only concern for you, Dawn, is just that with your new position. Is it gonna be hard for you to at the last minute be like, I have to be out at.
And Rusty's like, probably.
I don't see it being an issue, but. Everybody else does, I don't know.
Well, what happens if? So what happens if Dawn can't get off? Let's say we say, okay, he's on the committee and then he can't get off work. Then is it just you and Peter, or can somebody sub in for him
I would be concerned about that, just for that reasons.
for Brown Act?
Yeah.
Okay,
So I would just want 2, and then if someone can't make it, we can't make it, but. Yeah.
Maybe we tiebreaker. Tiebreaker. Okay.
You know, I think,
I'm not too concerned about being able to make it, everybody else has.
I'm not.
I think we're spending too much time, let's
Yeah.
Don do it.
Okay.
Move on.
that's think we have consensus now.
Well, I wanna make sure you go through the list in a very systematic, clean way.
Let's have
right now,
Margaret's been.
and so that, and then we're make a motion, it's based off whatever the list is.
Amador Rapid Transit. Councilmember Cranford, Amador County Transportation Commission. Councilmember Cornish is the primary, Vice Mayor Nunn is the alternate. Amador Abandoned Vehicle Authority, Councilmember Cornish, Amador Air Quality Control Board. Councilmember Felina, sorry. Amador Council of Tourism, Councilmember Felina. ACTC Roundtable, Councilmember Cornish, Amador Fire Protection Authority, Vice Mayor Nunn. ACRA, Councilmember Cranford. Intergovernmental Committee, Councilmember Cranford. OAS Disaster Council, Vice Mayor Nunn. Public Relations, Community Events, Councilmember Cranford. Solid Waste Management and Solid Waste Task Force, Mayor Russo. Sheriff's Negotiations, Vice Mayor Nunn, and Mayor Russo.
So make a motion.
Yep.
Make a motion, make a motion basically approving that list that was Margaret Roberts just read.
I'll make a motion to approve the summary of council member appointments for that.
What'd she say?
Roll call please.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, I thought I said second.
You seconded.
I did.
Councilmember Crawford,
I,
Councilmember Molina,
Aye.
Councilmember Hornish,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Nunn.
Aye.
Mayor Amarissa.
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes.
Moving on to 5, consent calendar. Looking for approval of the consent calendar for,
Public comment.
oh yeah, no. Sorry. Yes, public comment. Any written public comment?
There's no written public comment.
Okay, thank you. Does any of the council members have anything they want to pull or if not, I'm looking for a motion?
I will motion to approve the consent calendar items. I can't be the one that keeps motioning.
I'll second.
Councilmember Crawford,
I,
Councilmember Molina,
Aye.
Councilmember Hornish.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Nunn. Vice Mayor Nunn.
Yeah.
he's taking on it.
He needs to just, yeah, get stuff on there, questions. No.
And Mayor Russo.
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes.
Okay. Number 6, public hearings, we have none. Moving to regular agendas, number 7, regular agenda. Starting off with 7.1, resolution 2025-04, adopting and revised annual budget and fund balance projections for fiscal year 2024/2025.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, for the pleasure of being the financial consultant for the city. What I'd like to do for you tonight is just go over the fiscal 24-25 annual budget as revised. There's a lot of things that are going on with the budget this year. As you know, it's already February and we haven't adopted the budget yet. Essentially the 8th month of the fiscal year. So this budget is here to solidify that. Much of the information in the budget that you'll see from an expenditure or appropriation authority recommended request has already been spent. And in some cases, the numbers are extrapolated out to basically come up with an estimate on what will be spent with, the known information that we have. I do want to preface this budget conversation by saying that I've been with the city roughly 6 months or so. And in that period of time, none of the bank reconciliations since July of 2021 have been completed, and we're completed all the way through March of 2024 right now, so we're making considerable progress in that. Because those bank reconciliations were completed, many of the line items and the information in some revenues and expenditures as posted in the city's new financial system were incorrect. So all of that has been corrected, where you have, as we mentioned a couple of months ago when we did the CFP presentation, we knew that the CFP revenues had been posted to property tax in the general fund. Because that check is just one check that comes from the county. And absent looking at the backup on what that check is for, which is multiple things, not just secure property tax, it's for multiple things. That money was just put into the general fund. All of that has been audited, all that has been reviewed, and all that has been updated in the financial system. So those numbers for the Jim Bell, Ridge CFD, Fund 80 and 81 in the current financial system are correct. And I will get you a list of all the expenditures by detail, some of the other for you to get you that. So you're going to won't get one. Through the day. So there was a lot of work that needed to be done. And bringing a budget before this time was not a prudent thing to do, because I couldn't tell, and I didn't know whether or not any of the balances that were in the accounts were correct, without going through essentially every single account in the city, in all the funds, and making sure that there was some integrity to the information that was in there, and that it made sense for the information that was in there. So all of that was taken under consideration in preparing this budget. What I'm going to do tonight is actually go through the budget in a fairly high level detail. Okay, I'm not going to get into the line items, how much, what is the contractual expenditures for X, Y, Z. That process typically occurs in a normal budget year when you have a normal budget process, which is not this year. Now, when we put together the 25-26 budget, which will start on July 1st, just in 4 months from now, we will have that process. So we will put, a calendar together where probably sometime in April will come before the city council, and we'll have a workshop where we're going to go through what is in some of these larger line items and tell you very intricate detail what those things are, so that your council will have the information it needs to make decisions on whether or not you want to appropriate money for those sorts of things. And we'll do that for all funds, and we'll do that for all departments. We may have a couple of these workshops where we go over maybe the general fund in one city, and then the other city we go through all the other ones. Because there's a lot of things going on, not just in the general fund. You got a water fund that is underwater, no pun intended. You have a sewer fund that's doing very well, and you have a lot of other special revenue, some of which I'll talk about tonight, that have a lot of moving parts in it. Jim Bell Ridge. A lot going on there too, and I have changes that are being recommended for that. When we get to that slide, I'll go through that. So I just wanted to say that up front, but as part of tonight's presentation, I'll go over the budget development process, some of which I just discussed. We'll look at the citywide budget overview. Basically, the citywide budget is for keep in mind that the city has multiple funds, and this budget essentially is asking for approval of the recommended appropriation authority or the expenditure authority that's in that budget. That's what your council approved when you adopt the budget, the expenditure. Enterprise funds, we'll look at water and wastewater. And then I rolled up all the other fund groups and I separated them out, and really kind of never done that. So I can do that and put them all together. And then we'll go on to next steps and questions. Next slide, please. So as part of the revised budget, I'm calling this the revised budget because you had an original budget that wasn't approved, and a revised budget that we're looking to approve on. As part of the budget development process, I mentioned that the finance department has been doing a lot of catch up from July 21 forward. I feel that we've done enough catch up, particularly through March 24, And I reviewed a lot of the information that has happened this fiscal year, fiscal 24-25. And I feel that in that review that we have what we need to put a budget together. And the numbers that you see for 24-25 will probably be very close to representing exactly what happens by the end of the year. Completion of the Zinfandel Ridge Community Facility District audit, we went over that. There was a reconciliation of all the balances that was completed, so that is carried forward in the budget. Reviewed all the fiscal activity for the prior 3 fiscal years, then we did that. General trends. Review the 24-25 fiscal activity to date. And then we reviewed the information from prior fiscal 24-25 budget, one that was not approved. And then all the way back forward in the current budget. And then they prepare hopefully a very easy and simple to understand format for the budget that includes not just expenditure and revenue information, but more importantly, tells you how much money you have in the bank in these funds, which is very key to making decisions, especially on the future. Next slide, please. So looking at the citywide budget as a whole, so these are the fund groups that are rolled up. So the general fund is 1 fund, enterprise fund, there's 2 funds in there, special revenue fund, there's probably 12, et cetera. But all the funds combined into these groups, where you have special revenue funds and SRF impact fees, which is your impact fee funds, and I think you have 4 or 5 of those. Capital project funds are just those. There are funds that are set up specifically to undertake projects. And then you have your CFP funds. So there's 2 funds, Fund A and one for operation and public safety. We were talking about approving a recommended budget. Your focus needs to be on expenditure, which is the appropriation authority that this budget is looking for. So citywide, you have just under $3.8 million in appropriations noted in this budget for fiscal 24-25, of which 8 months have already gone by. Next slide, please. Looking at citywide capital, and I'm going to go through these capital projects. There's 3 or 4 capital projects that are part of this budget. And I'll go through those individually when I go through the funds. But you have about 354, about $3.8 million appropriation, 4,000, 10% is allocated towards capital projects, and you can see the funding source for those projects. So sewer, you have some equipment in there, TOT Streets and Promotion Fund, I believe that is for the park project. CDBG grant is for the completion of the fire station project, the development project fund. That is also for the park project, and the Miwok Indian project fund is for the casino. So I'll hit on them separately. Next slide. Okay, but focusing now just specifically on the general fund. So keep in mind that the general fund is a fund that is set up to essentially pay for anything the city wants it to pay for. It's the fund that has the most discretion in terms of how you can spend the money and what you choose to spend it on. And it's typically the fund that has most of the operations, the core operations in the city built into it. So for the general fund, what I put here is 23-24 estimated actuals, and you'll see this for most of the funds. And then what the revised budget is for 24-25. I put the actuals from the previous fiscal year as estimated because, well, they haven't been audited yet. Okay, and in fact, if you look at your budget schedules, you'll see that the numbers for 21-22, 23-23, and 23-24 all say estimated. That's all they are at this point. Okay, I can't call them actual and say that in the document until we actually have an audit that proves that they're actual. I think they will be very close, if not exactly what you see here, but I need to call them. So when we look at the general fund as a whole, we're looking at appropriation authority just over $1.44 million. That compares to about $1.24 million that I think we're going to spend in the prior fiscal year. And then the revenue side, you can see revenue is pretty equal, 1.38 million in 23-24, and then 24-25, 1.7. Looking specifically at some of the things that are driving these numbers, in 23-24, it had a surplus, or you probably will have a surplus, that you will add back to reserves. If you look at the revenues in 23-24, they're about $141,000 higher than the expenditures that are likely to be incurred. And that money would just drop to fund balance. It would go to fund balance and it would be added to your reserves, all of which are unobligated. So you don't have any assigned reserves for specific things like economic contingency, capital projects, or deferred maintenance, those sorts of things. Some cities do have that. You don't have those set up. You can bring a policy back at some point in time in the future, to the extent council wants to have a conversation about taking some of the reserve that you have, which is over 2.1 million in the general fund, and actually setting those aside and only using those for purposes that you designate, subject to your approval before they're ever used. So those are committed and restricted reserve, basically. But all of your reserves right now are obligated. They're undesignated. We thought of put likely put about $141,000 back in 2024. And the reason for that is you had two very large development permits, building permits, all of the revenue which accrues to the general fund. And permitting activity that came in that year, and I want to say it's close to a couple $100,000 for that. So that is what is driving that surplus basically. In 24-25, you can see that expenditures outstrip revenues by about $70,000. So we're going to use 70,000 of that 141,000 that we're putting back in the previous year to balance the budget for the current year. That is the estimate today. The forecasted amounts for revenues that we prepared on hopefully a conservative basis. We're putting together revenue. I don't like to overestimate revenues in any way, shape, or form. I'd rather they're come in a little bit higher than try to guess exactly what they're going to come in at. Now, that being said, I don't want to be overly conservative either. So the estimates that you see for revenue, I think, are attainable for the current fiscal year and are likely to transpire. There is nominal revenue growth that's built in for certain categories, and I'll go through the revenue specifically. And then, of course, there's a lot of one-time activity that you have to remove from year to year. Things like the building permit. Are you going to receive another $200,000 in building permits this year like you did last year? Probably not. Okay, so because of that, take all that into consideration. The budget also includes fully loaded salaries for all positions in the city. So you have like only 13 positions, 13 FTE in the city. And you five up here are also 5 FTEs. So I think there's 18 FTEs in the city. And that's for full-time equivalents, basically. Those 13 positions are budgeted in the budget. They're essentially allocated to 3 different funds. The majority of the allocation is in the general fund. However, the sewer and water funds, to the extent possible, have portions of certain positions, knowing that those individuals actually do work for the water and sewer fund. So that is in your budget document, that breakdown. So that's there. But the fully loaded salary for all the positions is built in. I want to call it one thing. So there is one new position, publicly superintendent, that is actually part of this budget that is currently not filled. Okay, not filled. You've already achieved 8 months worth of salary savings for that. I'm going to make up a number for that $70,000 salary. Okay, so you've achieved 2/3 basically of that $75,000 salary in salary savings. That's $50,000. Okay, so this budget has already saved $50,000 by not having them. And that will fall to the bottom line. Ultimately, once it's filled, then you start including those expenditures and all things for money. So to the extent you have salary savings, that is not in here because this budget assumes all positions are filled for the entirety of the year. The budget also includes a 3%, 3.8% CPI increase for all positions effective as at July 1st. So that's a retroactive implementation of that increase. And assuming all of this comes to fruition, so assuming we bring in what we say we're going to bring in and spend in 23-24, and then again in numbers that are represented there for 24-25, at the end of the day, your fund balance in the general fund will be just under $2.2 million, which represents about 150% of your operating budget in the general fund. Okay, that is a very prudent number. Okay, your city is very small.
And one thing could significantly alter the future. In terms of a big insurance claim or, something. Economically that might transpire, those sorts of things, so having that level of reserve is very cool. So I think Vic's done a good job of achieving that. Next slide, please. Looking at the key revenues in the general fund, so there are 4% increase in property taxes is estimated. And this is based on the receipt of the first payment that has been built in, and so we can extrapolate how much in secured tax roll we will be receiving by the end of the year. Based on that number, so it's going to be about a 4% increase. Static sales tax revenues based on the current state of the economy, so I didn't increase sales tax too much. We need to monitor that to see what's going on, but things are pretty static with the last year. $40,000 increase in transient occupancy tax, and a couple of things going on here. So you have I believe the Shenandoah Inn that is now no longer part of the city limits. You also have the RV park, which has a growing number of non-transients now that are living there, which means you don't collect the TOT on that anymore. Okay, those things are adversely impacting the amount of TOT we'd like to see. On the other hand, over time, the city has not accrued TOT. Okay, so keep in mind TOT is paid for prior months. So in the quarter that ends the fiscal year, which is for April, May, and June, it's paid in July and sometimes in August. Okay, well, that's in the next fiscal year. What the city has done inconsistently in the past is taken that money that is brought in July and August that actually applies to the prior fiscal year and accruing it back, getting the timing right, okay, on the revenues on where they belong. So I've done that this year, okay, so I trued all that up, so that's why you see a little bit of the increase in TOT going on. Removal of one-time, that's a one-time thing. Removal of one-time development related fees, we talked about that. And there's also a one-time payment of SB2 grant funding that has come in very recently. I think it was $71,000, somewhere around there, to cover previously incurred planning costs that were incurred in the general fund. This is the reimbursement for that. Inclusion of $19,800 for landscaping services funded from the Zinfandel Village Community Facilities District. It's also my understanding there is an RFP that is being put together for that process itself that will likely result in what those true costs are. Updates to the interest earnings. So this is new. Okay, so back in November of 2023, I believe it was, the city, is that right? 2023. The city took a lot of money that was sitting idle in its operating account, that was part of the bank, and actually opened up a sweep. Okay, where daily, essentially daily, Wells Fargo was taking that money and they're investing it in applicable investments, essentially money markets, which is an investment consistent with 53600 of the California government code, which says what cities can invest money in. And that money is being invested overnight, where it's sitting there until it's needed. Ultimately, what this meant is that you now, instead of receiving basically zero interest, you receive a couple $100,000 worth of interest every year from the title funds. So that significantly altered the picture, and you'll see in the fund schedules that I have budgeted for 23, 24, and 24, 25, including the budget for Fund 80 and 81 CFD budgets, there's interest earnings in there. Okay, so that's just based on the average cash balance citywide for the funds that receive interest. So that is out again. So 70,000. So that's a big thing. And congratulations to the city for actually really having the government goes. Next slide, please. Okay, looking at the expenditures and some of the key items there. So you have full funding for all positions in the general fund for the entirety of the year and this year. That includes 3.8% boost, including a new public works superintendent position, So in the general fund, that cost is $55,000. So that's the general fund share, of fully loaded cost of that position. And because that position is vacant, and because we're 2/3 of the way through the fiscal year, you're gonna save about 2/3 of that $55,000, so it is, 7 plus the, $42,000 already. So, all things being equal, that $71,000 needs of fund balance that we projected is now $42,000 better. Update to the budget for professional services and insurance, things like general liability and workers' comp and property, costs, that are required, so I did take a look at that. We don't have the specific detail we would need tonight. But these are some of the things that I would definitely go through as part of the budget workshop, to make sure that large budget items like that. Expenditures are vetted out. Increase in engineering costs is the current activity level, so that was increased by 28,000. We've got a lot of engineering costs that we incur right now. So that budget actually $8,000. And then we have model increases in base budgets where required due to inflation, and increased costs of devices services. So with that, I do want to mention that the city's got a lot of things on that right now. Looking at how ultimately costs will be incurred in the future, particularly for public safety. Okay, right now the city pays just about $100,000 for its police and dispatch services, or police services and dispatch services, and another $37,000 I believe for fire. Those costs are likely to increase in the future, and I'm hearing that more and more. So we're putting plans in place, and that will be a big part of the budget discussion in 2026, to actually be sure that the city is able to afford those, not using one-time money, and you can use that for a while, but not using one-time money, but built into your base budget where ongoing revenue is paid on expenditures on an annual basis. Next slide, please. Okay, moving on from the general fund and looking at the water fund. So the water fund, you can see here that expenditures are typically always more, well, at least for 2 years, than what revenue is coming in. Okay, so this fund is upside down right now. Revenues are higher due to increased water delivery charges year over year, so 766 there versus 636. Water delivery is just based on the amount of water actually delivered versus the rates that are paid, okay, which have not gone up for some time, and they're not slated to go up. My understanding is that a rate study is in the process. Now that the numbers are all on that, and we're in a position to actually give a rate study folks a number they can work with, and be confident there. Not what it's saying. That proposition is going to process through the council for your consideration of potentially raising water rates next year. The water fund has been probably that was the last 4 years. Last year, including I think that was fair. The overall fund balance in water, reminder. Several funds that make up the water components. You have impact fees that are in 7 fund here. Combine all that activity, your fund balance is later. Okay, so right now the water fund has no money. You're using other funding sources right now to operate your water fund, and we have to change that. Okay, we got to get that back positive so that you have a positive fund balance. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the wastewater or the sewer fund. In the sewer fund, you have for 23-24, you use a little bit more money than you brought in, and for 24-25, you're also using a little bit more money than is expected to come in. So this fund is structurally imbalanced as well from a budgetary perspective. Revenues in this fund, because it has a fund balance, $1.7 million. Are earning interest, so that's a good thing. Okay, so now there's more revenue coming into the sewer fund because it does have a large cash balance. You also have some budgeted equipment in there, that is typically what you see in a sewer fund where you need to replace pumps, you need to replace certain things as things come up, especially on an emergency basis. So there's just a very base level of equipment that's budgeted, $10,000 for 24-25. Wastewater rates also are not expected to increase in 2025, and we do have that rate study going on. Operating costs, like most costs citywide, are impacted by nominal inflation increases. We also are using $78,000 in working capital to balance the budget for fiscal year. And then we also operated in a deficit position for the last 2 years. So it wasn't a deficit 3 years ago, but for this year and last year finished, it was in a deficit position. Next slide. All right, this is kind of hard to see, but all these funds are listed in your budget document, but this is basically all of the special revenue funds in the city. So we're going to touch on a couple of these. From an expenditure perspective, from an appropriation perspective, for all of your special revenue funds combined, we're looking at a authority of just over $525,000. And you can see that is in essentially 5 funds have expenditures that are recommended. You have your TOT Streets and Promotions Fund, which is used for things that go on throughout the community, things that go on the streets, and can be used for projects. I want to talk about this fund for just a couple of minutes, because what has happened with this fund is a change from previous practice. This fund, I believe, in the past, in the long ago past, used to receive 50% of the TOT money that came in. So if a hotel paid $10,000 to TOT for a given quarter, $5,000 went in the general fund, and $5,000 in the TOT. That has not happened at all since fiscal 2021. Okay, so that has not happened. It's not programmed to happen in the current budget. The reason I didn't program it to happen in the current budget is because you have a deficit in the general fund. So by taking half of that TOT, $125,000 basically, out of the general fund and accruing it to the TOT Streets and Promotion Fund, your deficit in the general fund would grow to $200,000 from $71,000. So it was a give and take. Typically, many of the things that are covered in the TOT and Streets and Promotion Fund would be covered by the general fund anyway. Okay, so many city councils have a special department in the general fund that actually takes care of this. They might call it non-departmental, they might call it special events, they may call it something else. But I think in the future, and maybe as part of the budget discussions for the coming fiscal year, we really look at that fund O2, that TOT Streets and Promotion Fund, roll that into the general fund, and then continue to do the things that fund does, because it does a lot of great things for the city and the community, but actually fund it out of the general fund, which is what it is anyway. Okay, so just wanted to call that out, but that fund is slated to end the year. Keep in mind there's a big grant coming into that fund, and then you have some expenditures there for the McGee Park. Okay, so basically the city's share of that cost is coming out of that fund. But at the end of the day, you'll still have over $250,000. It's still good money. Let's see, you have the gas tax fund. So the only thing they basically paid for about gas tax fund is streetlights. So the PG&E costs related to streetlights. So that's it. You're bringing in a lot more than that. And one thing I also want to do that I mentioned with the city manager is actually look at the gas tax fund, which has $330,000 in it, and say, okay, are there any big street projects, capital projects coming up? Because you can use gas tax money for that. Or are there any costs that are being incurred by public works staff related to the streets, street cleanup, street maintenance, those sorts of things, sidewalk maintenance, landscaping maintenance, those sorts of things. That can also be charged to the gas tax. Okay, and defer those costs, defray those costs out of the general fund into another funding source. So we'll be looking at that. You have the Supplemental Law Enforcement Fund, which is your basically the $116,000 or so that you receive every year for your law enforcement services, law enforcement contract is what it is historically been used for. I have $107,000 for the current year's contract, built into that, and that's for dispatch and police services. But that fund will add $309,000. But to the extent, the negotiations with, Amarillo County Sheriff's Office, costs go up, you still have some money, one-time money, keep that in mind, in fund balance here that you can use towards that contract. Basically until it runs out. But again, the goal is not to use one-time money into perpetuity. You can't, it's gonna run out. Okay, the goal is to get your revenues and expenditures from a base perspective, meaning this is what you do every day. All the time, no one-time stuff, to be equal or having a revenue side. Okay, CDBG grant, so there's a $75,000 expenditure there. Basically, you're spending what's left in that towards the fire station project, I believe. And then the redevelopment project fund, you're spending what's left in there. The interest can also be spent, even though it drops the fund balance. We do that. And use that interest to fund the expenditure, but that money is for also the McGee Park project. So total capital, in these special revenue funds, you can see the majority of that 525 is for capital projects, 329. For the Park and fire station project. I talked about TOT3 promotion fund, I talked about that, talked about supplemental law enforcement. But the thing to note about these funds is they can only be used for specific purposes. Okay? Other than maybe the TOT streets and promotion fund, which is somewhat general fund type expenditures, even though you're separating them. But all these other funds can only be used for specific purpose. You can't use them for discretionary things or things that you think of unless there is an absolute nexus between what you want to spend it on and why that fee or why that revenue was originally. Next slide, please. So these are your other special revenue funds or for impact fees. So impact fees are collected pursuant to 1600, where there's an impact fee study that's done that says this is what the growth in the future for the city is going to be. This is what you can charge development for certain fees to make sure that you're able to keep up with the growth by using these fees to mitigate the impact of growth on your infrastructure and things like that. So you've got a few impact fees here. You've got one for general administrative, you've got street fire, police, and you have an overarching AB 1600 fee. It's got a deficit fund balance, so that's one thing that we're going to look at this year. Is you've got a few funds that have deficit fund balances. Some of them have pretty big deficit fund balances, and I want to go back and research the history of that. Fortunately, a lot of this history isn't in your current financial system. It's from 4 years ago, which is in your former financial system. So when you put the budget together, I will do that. Towards few funds, make sure that you have the information. What I'll be looking for is basically what those costs were, how they were supposed to be reimbursed, whether or not they were reimbursed, and the money ended up in another fund that needs to be moved to offset that deficit fund balance or something else. So everything's traceable, and we'll have all the answers when we bring back probably at a budget conversation that we have before we adopt the budget for 25-26. There are no expenditures budgeted for use of the impact fees. So I encourage the city, I highly encourage the city that if you've got capital projects in there that have any sort of a nexus that your city attorney ultimately would agree to use these fees, because I always check with the attorney when we do the impact fees. Do it. That's why they're there. They're there for special projects. Okay, next slide. Capital projects funds. So here's where you have a couple of funds that have large deficit fund balances from things that happened in the past. There's several capital projects fund. Only one of them has the appropriation authority that we're asking for. And that is for the casino project, which hopefully that will be reimbursed. So any expenditures here are, especially for the in that fund, the Miwok Community Project Fund, that's going to be a self-founded fund. So we do have a separate fund set up for that. And ultimately, any costs that are incurred there related to what's going on with that project are expected to be reimbursed by the tribe. So you can see the ending fund balance is basically zero, so I'm assuming everything that's been spent will come in. But there are costs that have been incurred late. And that's it. The two funds with deficit fund balances are the general plan update. So somewhere in the past, sometime in the past, there must have been a significant amount of expenditure, at least 268,000. That's the numbers. That was spent towards the general fund that was not reimbursed, or was expected to be reimbursed at some point in time in the future, or was reimbursed in the funds, maybe ended up in the general fund or something like that. So that is one fund that we will research. Similarly, you have a large project that was undertaken related to the Safe Routes to School project, and most of the time this is like a sidewalk type project, or could be a street project as well. But there's $509,000 in deficit fund balance there, and that definitely needs to be researched. So we'll be looking at that. We'll be doing that in this budget. We'll know what that's for. I have a feeling that we're still waiting for funding. Some of these projects take forever to get reimbursed. And there's a significant amount of follow-up that needs to occur to be reimbursed. Next slide. Okay, other fund groups, community facilities district fund. So you can see there are two of those. You have Fund 80, which is the Rich operating fund for maintenance operations. And then you have Fund 81, which is the Rich public safety fund. In the staff report, I took the information right out of the annual report that's prepared by NBS and put the language in there on what those funds can be used for. I believe that what we have in the budget this year actually accomplishes that. Okay. From a revenue perspective, you can see that there's about $141,000 that's going to be coming in the current fiscal year. Again, this is right out of the report. The report basically that what the assessment was for that particular component of the CFP, and then another $72,000 coming in for public safety. Okay, so just about $213,000 so, it's going to be coming in for CFP. Of those amounts, I have put in just over $80,000 expenditures for the operating side of the CFP. And those operations include an array of things ranging from anything that where staff is involved in the CFP. So you have an administrative component, and you have a public works component where public works is out there actually doing work for the CFP. Keep in mind that the budget's prepared for the CFP. We do ultimately do an audit for the CFP. We prepare schedules for the CFP. We track the CFP, we audit the CFP, we do a lot with the CFP. So all of those are in that admin component that is part of this as well. On the public safety side, essentially I'm spending or recommending to spend all of the money except for the interest that is expected to accrue in the current fiscal year. That's $64,307 on the public safety contract. One thing I want to call out is that from a public safety perspective, not a dime has been spent from the CFP since its inception for public safety component. No money has come out of that fund, Fund 81. So ultimately, it's my understanding that Zinfandel Ridge and the residents there make up more than half of the citizens in Plymouth, and ultimately beyond that, there is a CFD that is set up to cover the costs associated with the increase in population and ultimately the increase in cost that's likely to occur as a result of that. And you're going to see that ultimately when the sheriff comes back in with a negotiated contract. And that contract significantly increases, rightfully so, in my opinion. Okay, for the city. So I'm recommending that the city basically use all of the money that's coming in related to public safety component for the CFP 64,307. Towards, not only law enforcement, but also a component of the fire, for the fire services as well. Which are both very applicable expenditures, as noted in the CFP documents. You will still have in the CFP at the end of the day, assuming you spend $80,000 in operations and maintenance for the landscaping, the administration, all these things. And there's legal fees in there as well for the city attorney's time that it takes to do whatever the CFP might be requesting from a legal perspective, or what staff is requesting from a legal perspective that's specific to the CFP. All that's built into that. But at the end of the day, you're still gonna have $300 and some odd $1,000 in the operating side, and you're gonna have $278,000. You're gonna have almost $600,000 still that will have been collected and is unspent for the CFP to move forward into the future. And so these funds are available for things specific to the CFP. And I don't think the city has done anything that has been egregious or anything like that in terms of charging the CFD for, in fact, we've undercharged the CFD from my perspective in the past. So that needs to be fixed. And then no capital really is built in to that. But I'm saying you could do a project out there as long as it fits within the nexus of why you collect the CFD money. Yep. Next slide, please. Okay, so that kind of concludes the overview of what's going on in the budget. I realize it's a very high level discussion, but I hope that it gives you the flavor of exactly what this budget is doing and what it's intended to do, and more importantly, how it frames up the upcoming budget cycle for 2026. In the next steps, so we're going to continue to reconcile all the fiscal activity to the current date. So as I mentioned, the bank reconciliation and actually April. I'm on May right now. 2024. So making a lot of good progress on that. And once a bank reconciliation is done, it forces you to go back and make sure things are in the right place and all that. So that's why it's taking some time because things work in the right place. And then we'll continue preparing for the audits. I think we're just about ready to go for fiscal 21-22. There's just a couple more schedules that need to be put together for that related to debt and fixed assets. That simply cannot find. So I'm going to need to recreate those. And I know that the audit firm that you've used in the past, which was also the audit firm for another city that I worked with, is no longer around. So getting those work papers from the previous audit in 2021, not only because it's so old, but because the auditor's not around anymore, may not be possible. Okay, so I may have to come up with a way working with current auditors to rectify it. And then we will work on the audits for 2022 and 2023. Don't expect anything big in those. And then also work with city staff to begin preparing those budget for 25-26. So I would expect a very robust, inclusive discussion with the council and with the community and some of the things that we have coming forward with the budget. You know, from my perspective, I believe in full transparency. I want to answer every question that you have. And I don't want there to be any ambiguity built into this budget. Or one of the takeaways is, what was that? Okay, that's not what I want to hear. Okay. So whatever I can do to assist this council and the community with providing additional information, I want to know what that is. So I'm going to stop there, and I will be happy as for staff to answer any questions you can.
Excellent, thank you very much. During this presentation, I'm going to start with opening it up, public comment to the room. So if there's anyone that'd like to get up and speak on this.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work.
Right.
Like 5 minutes, right, to go
Why don't,
Okay,
Like,
oh, since you opened public comment, I'd recommend we
Just
close
get-
that, get
close
that, and then take a recess, don't have anything in the middle.
yeah, so should I read these in?
No, you note the public comment,
Okay.
who it's from, what item it's concerning, and note it'll be part
They're
of
all
the
the
record.
same, they're all the same.
That's fine, but I want you to note who it's from.
Yeah.
And say.
That's what I mean by read it in,
Yeah,
yeah, not
yeah.
read the body of the
Right,
letter,
right.
just the.
And then note it'll be part of the record.
Okay, so seeing no public comment out there, we did have public comment that came in by email. We received a letter from Mary Ann Eckerlin. I don't know if this. Oh, okay, sorry, Robert Cushings. Lynn Walker. Don Eckerlin. Tom Mickelson. And Stephanie Marino. So we received. Those in the right. Then at this point, we'll take a 5 minute break.
Yeah.
Okay, I call the meeting back to order. We're still on 7.3, coming back from break.
7.1.
I'm sorry, 7.1, my bad, without my glasses.
You're right.
Keep your mic on.
And one, Mike,
Mike's not.
Mike.
32 is Mike.
7.1, so we've had public comment and now we're gonna go to council members. Let's start it.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Heath. So when you started out your presentation earlier, you said something about this big check came in and it got here and wasn't finalized or gone over with the fine tooth comb. So how do we not repeat this check deposit mishap in the future?
How do I do what?
How do we not repeat the same mistake? How do we
Oh.
identify which bucket it is actually for if it is a giant check that comes in?
You just need to make sure you've got staff that knows what they're doing. And that it remains caught up. It's as simple as that. It's been a resource issue and a turnover issue in the past. So, making sure you have, however the leadership of your finance function looks in the future. You need to make sure that there's a lot of consistency there. Okay, and the way I'm setting things up today, hopefully, in the end, it is something that can be very seamlessly transferred to another person. With obviously the caliber and the background to do the job.
Thank you.
Councilmember, we've also worked with our financial system help desk to teach us how to enter multiple account codes for one check, which we didn't know how to do prior. So we can enter one check into multiple accounts at one time, where before they didn't know how to do that, so they were just entering it into
That's a lump sum.
as a lump sum.
So they are quoted. when
So
they come in.
now when they come in, they're coded to property tax and then CFD.
Fantastic.
So it's all coded to the multiple accounts when they come in now.
Okay. Thank you, Margaret.
And I'll add to that, again, like he said, this is a historic issue for we had about 5 years of a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
And no one really at the helm. So a lot of things got fell through cracks. So he's closing the cracks and breaking the pies up.
Yeah, it certainly feels like it.
So that I just want that to be clear too. That was a major problem for us.
You mentioned that you're working on the actual fund numbers, correct?
Working,
On the actual fund numbers, meaning finalization, what's the timeline on that? Do you have an anticipated,
the fund numbers.
yeah, when the finalized numbers will be
Oh,
available?
well, once an audit is done, so when we finish the 21-22 audit,
Mhm.
the 22
Sounds like it
numbers
might be a little dicey.
will be fine. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know, I mean, there may be some items changes, just sort of things are classified, whatever, but the bottom line shouldn't change too much. And then when we get to 22-23 audit, and that audit's done, then your 23 numbers will be final. Similarly for 24 moving forward.
So how long does that take for fiscal year typically?
So I expect that ultimately when the auditors are called back, and we say we're ready to go and we give them a trial balance, citywide trial balance and we say, here's our schedules and, you know, we're ready to go. Well,
Okay,
I mean, not from now, from
no, in general,
in general, yeah.
once they receive it, okay.
2 to 3 months or so. They're pretty simple city, in terms of what needs to be audited. You don't have CalPERS, okay, which is a huge component and
Yeah.
a lot of accounting stuff that goes on in the background. Your fixed asset schedule is pretty small. You have debt issues, but only three, I think you only have 3, that maybe 2. So that's small. You know, where they're gonna spend the majority of their time will be looking at payroll records, okay, which in the past, and I'll be frank with you, are things were posted in the wrong places and they just weren't done right, so you know, I've tried to fix all that and make it good moving forward, and in the past. But there may be a couple of issues there, not that not that the expense goes way up or goes way down, it's just how it's posted, okay? Don't affect anything in the expense, but other than that, no, I think everything will be pretty clean.
I think 2 to 3 months is fantastic to hear. I was afraid it's gonna take much longer than that. How do you reckon we get positive on the water fund?
Now, let's see,
I'm sorry,
how do we get positive on water? The 218 process itself, well, we're gonna do a rate study. Okay, and ultimately the rate study will be conducted with staff. And we'll go through and with the consultants, we'll identify what is likely to be needed over the term of the rate study, which is typically 5 years. Okay, from a capital perspective, a lot of times things change with the State Water Research Control Board. And they promulgate new permit requirements and things that need to be done within X period of time before they issue a cease and desist. If you don't have it done, those sorts of things. So all of that will be built in, will be considered and ultimately built in as part of this rate study. They'll take active balances, which you didn't have until now, okay, in your water fund. And even though it's upside down, you still have revenue sources coming in and you know what your recurring expenditures are. And they'll forecast all that out, and then they're gonna determine what your rate structure needs to be to maintain a going concern for your water neighborhoods. And then that will come back to the council, there'll be conversations about that, and then go to a 218 for ultimate adoption.
last but not least. You know, we mentioned workshops. How soon can we get in on one of those? When a budget workshop where we sit down and just really get nitty gritty.
So I mentioned the city manager, I probably like maybe by the first meeting in April. You can do the first one.
Right.
And have, you know, just a general discussion on. Like the general fund, for example, and some of the more intricate things in the general fund. Have appropriate individuals get up and tell you what they're spending money on in those departments, and what they need money for.
Yeah.
We can talk about capital, as a theme, on projects that might be coming forward. We can talk about general fund, solvency, and making, in other words, sustainability. Making sure that, you know, the revenue sources that are coming into general fund, particularly the larger ones, are sustainable, and here's why. We'll show you, you know, what the mix of the revenues is and all that, and expenditures.
Because you mentioned transparency, and I think that's something that we're all wanting more of. And I'm hoping, or I would bet that this budget workshop will do that for us. And the fact that, not speaking for anybody else here, but the fact that there's only 4 months left in the budget that we're supposed to be approving today gives me a little bit of a relief. And then I'm hoping for much more communication, if you will, going forward for the next budget. So thank you again, appreciate it.
I guess that would kind of work this way. But yeah, I had a few concerns on it. The budget workshop was something that I definitely was interested in doing, or expediting that a little bit more. some of these issues in the budget, obviously, we receive a lot of correspondence from people about. As far as the CSD funds and Zippendale Ridge and so forth. My understanding, we approved this budget, people up there have concerns, which I don't blame them, about how. Some of the money spent and so forth. If we approve this budget now, we've effectively approved that expenditure for the year.
You approve the expenditure authority. Okay, so that, which could encompass a number of things. So you're approving basically an appropriation authority that gives staff, in any given fund, a limit that says this is how much you can spend. Now, if we get close to that limit or we know we're going to go over, we technically should be coming back to you with a budget amendment that says this happened or that happened and we need additional monies. Okay. Sometimes different departments in a fund will spend more than another, and that's because just things get misclassified or whatever. So I'm looking at the fund total. Not individual line items or anything like that. It's at the fund level for the appropriation. So I don't want to spend any more than what I said I was going to spend in the general fund. Similarly, I don't want to spend any more in the CFD than I said I'm going to spend. And I can pretty much tell you we're probably not going to. Okay, but that's the goal. Now, if throughout the year something were to happen, let's say we had a full year left and COVID happened, okay? And COVID happens and we think revenues are going to take a nosedive. As a staff, proactively, we're going to make policy decisions, and you're going to know about them, that are going to basically tell people, don't spend any money. We don't know if COVID's going to impact this revenue stream, and this money will be coming in. Let's try to temper our expenditures to some degree and not spend it. That's an ongoing conversation that happened all the time. And COVID was a good example because the organizations I was at during COVID did just that. We got to roll with the punches.
Then, still touching on the Zippendale Ridge situation there. We have the money in the public safety fund, which you were talking about at one point that we should use we should basically pay that out one time. That we've elected.
So out of the CFP, you mean?
Yeah, out of their CFP.
So yeah, Fund 81. So the way that would technically happen, so we know we're going to incur at least 100,000 or plus in costs for public safety, just for the sheriff and dispatch. And we know we're going to incur $36,000 or $37,000 for fire. Okay, so that's $140,000 right out the gate. All right, so those funds are typically paid. Well, the sheriff is going to come out to the extent possible out of the police money first, the supplemental law enforcement money, and then fire comes out of the general fund. So what will happen is the CFD will then, because the I'll say it's $60,000 or $70,000 that's built in to that cost. That money, okay, represents less than half the money that it's going to take to pay for those. Well, about half the money that it's going to take, and they have the preponderance of the population there, so it makes sense that that money comes into the source where those expenditures, as a source where those expenditures are made. So, in the case of the general fund where the fire is right now, it would reimburse the general fund for a portion of that. And then in the case of the CFD, I probably wouldn't charge the CFD as much or the police money as much where the cop money comes in, 160,000, and instead directly charge the CFD. Or I could split the invoices and charge the CFD directly for all of them. There's a number of ways to do it. But the goal would be to use that appropriation.
Okay, to my knowledge, there's never been a vote or nothing's in place on how much of that money is getting used. The city has never, to my knowledge, city council has never determined that money coming out of Zippendale Ridge, what percent could be spent for each one, for police or fire or anything. So just to say that we'll just take this money and use it, I think first off, there has to be a discussion on what percent to go to.
I think, didn't Mike have that information?
And isn't it already earmarked for? You know, sheriff's, public, safety, for
It's
example?
earmarked for safety, but what I'm getting at is how much goes into law enforcement and how much goes into fire.
I'm not sure it's designated in the study,
It's not.
what the percentage, there's no percentages that for public safety as a whole.
Yeah, the CFD report doesn't allocate that across fire or police, it just is public safety services. That's what it's earmarked for, and then how the city allocates that is really the city's discretion. But it just can't be used for non-public safety, that Fund 81 cannot be used for non-public safety.
It's like some separate money.
Yeah, and I understood all that. What I was getting at is how do we? So we have the money sitting there and there's no real general direction of how much to be used for each one. So like, if you take all the money and use it for, say, a sheriff's contract or something, well, it was supposed to partially be used for fire also. So that's my concern is it's not, we don't have anything in place on how much or what we were supposed to do.
Yeah, there's no history on that, because this is the first year you're using that money,
Yeah,
and
and I
that's
just,
why you have that large
I
fund.
think we should have that figured out before.
And I think it goes back to what the study says, it can be used for public safety. So I don't think it's discussed in any way, shape or form, how much should go to fire and how much should go to police.
Is that something we could workshop in April if we wanted to designate a percentage to each?
I think so, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the budget is the city council adopts the budget, right? So if you wanted to parse out or allocate a certain percentage, I mean, in some sense. You can argue it doesn't really matter in the sense of whatever it doesn't cover for one contract, it's gonna be covered by the general fund in the other, so it's. If I'm thinking about that correctly, not a finance person, but if the council wants to put a specific amount or set a specific allocation as a policy matter, it can do that. Just what you can't do is spend it on non-public safety, yeah.
Yeah, and I understand that. I guess my concern was, this has never been determined, it's never been decided. And historically, there's been times, you know, not here in the city, I'm talking about statewide, you know, special taxes. Been received, you know, or they're put in place that were supposed to get split up, and then they go here in the county, we had that with the 172 situation. Where, you know, then the board of supervisors turns around and uses most of it in one spot instead of. What was intended in another, so I have concerns about not having this money. You know, not determining what we're gonna put towards what.
And I would just say, as the policy making body of this city, the governing body. You have the ability to set policy in terms of how you want that allocated. I think what Andy's saying and what I'm saying is simply that the CFD report. Earmarked it for public safety in general, if the council wants to allocate that more specifically after that, it's absolutely within your purview.
Are you done?
All I would say is I personally, and you guys could decide to vote on it personally. I don't see the harm in putting this off for a week or the 2 weeks. I'd like to look more at a few of these things before voting to adopt this, but that comes into what everybody else thinks.
Okay, I wanna, because we did receive so many emails from Zinfandel Ridge friends. I really wanna address a couple of the questions that they had in hopes to ease some of their concerns.
Can we talk about those? Since they're not on the agenda, that was my understanding that we cannot bring this up, specifics.
If it's related to this agenda item.
Yeah,
If it's related to the CFD budget and the proposed budget and what is in the CFD fund. That's fair game, I think that's where you're going.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
So one of the questions I would like, if possible, may not be possible to have an answer to this. Is a theme I saw is a concern over city attorney fees. Specifically being used out of the CFD. and what those fees might be for. As related to this fund. Because between that. I think that was one of the main concerns they had, that if it was related to an issue with back problems, shouldn't that be coming from the general fund? Is it the, essentially, for lack of a better word, the fault of the CFD that these weren't figured out? So I can understand their questions in why are these funds being taken from here, and I just would like to make sure that we answer their questions.
So the city attorney fees, the former city council instructed the city attorney to work with the city manager, the city engineer, and the director of public works to collaborate with the HOA in order to determine which sections of Zinfandel Ridge fell under the purview of the CFD, and to attend meetings with the HOA, and then to work on coming up with an RFP for maintenance for the landscape, because they lost the current landscape. That is not anything that was done in the past, that's current issues. And those are where the attorney fees came from.
Okay, so they're not related to sorting out the mess that occurred with the funds.
The city attorney was used for that, but those fees were not charged to the CFD. The city paid for those out of the general fund.
Okay, I think that that's the answer that people are looking for. And I know some people are asking for a breakdown, that's separate, but
We're gonna be providing the
a
breakdown
breakdown.
of all the costs to the HOA.
okay, I think that would be super helpful to them.
Just want to elaborate on that from a
Yeah.
contractual perspective. So
Yeah.
one thing I did notice is that some of my time, and on my invoice, I allocate all the time, you know, what I'm doing to certain projects. For this project specifically, which was noted as part of the scope in my contract with the city, I track that time separately.
Yeah.
And I bill for it separately, and that amount is actually in the CFD as an expenditure. So that amount's there.
So Andy, would you fall under the admin staff charges then? Okay, thank you.
And in the future, because I'm doing this and we're talking about the CFD and how we're gonna spend the money, what money's coming in. And because part of the budget is the CFD, part of the audit ultimately will be the CFD, part of the ongoing tracking of expenditures in the CFD is part of the CFD, part of the bills that we pay for the CFD is the CFD. All the time associated with those activities billable to the CFD.
Right.
As an administrator.
And that's a normal procedure, that's
Absolutely.
not special to the city of Plymouth. That is what you would do across the board, just like if you're working on general fund, you're gonna allocate those, track those hours and allocate that money out of the general fund or whatever other fund there is. So that's across the board
Right.
with each fund that you're working on.
Yep.
Yeah, got it. Let me just see. I think we answered the public safety. So for this year, because there haven't been any decisions made on that $64,000. So for the 24-25 year. Will that just sit there and be rolled into 25-26? Or do we need to, Dawn's point, make a decision about using that in the upcoming sheriff's contract? Or is the sheriff's contract you're working on for this year, 25 and 26? I don't know if their contract goes fiscal year with ours, is what I'm asking.
So are you talking about the money that's appropriated this year or recommended to be appropriated out of the CFD, the 64,000 for the contract?
Yeah, the public safety,
Public safety.
64,000,
That will, in its entirety, be moved to the general fund, or applicable charges, which are more than that, will be moved into the CFD. Okay, there's a couple of reasons,
Okay.
that money's gonna be spent this year.
the 64,000.
Basically, yes, all of it, okay? And I could make an argument with the city council, very justifiable argument, that it should be more than that.
Yeah.
Because CFT is not paid, the public safety CFT is not paid for any prior years of any of that contract. Okay, so that's why you have that huge balance
But
in that fund.
isn't the 64,000 accumulative over those past years?
No.
No, that's just for this year. That's the amount that's being collected in the current year. They're one and the same.
Oh, so the 200
That's left over.
283,000 is what's in just the public safety,
Yes.
That's what's left over, yeah, exactly.
because it's not been touched.
Correct.
Okay, so. When, at the end of this fiscal year, 2025, at the end of this fiscal year, that 283,000 is gonna move into our general fund or the CFD general fund?
No, it's in the CFD fund, which is a
Fund.
fund in and of itself, yes.
Okay,
It can only be used for that purpose. Public safety in the CFD, yes.
so because it hasn't been used, it's just gonna move.
No. That's one.
And we can't use that for the sheriff's contract that we're negotiating now?
I think you have a very valid argument that I would work with the city attorney on that says that there's nothing that says we can't go back and say we should have been charging the CFT for this all along.
And I would argue to that point as well, that we should be using it towards the sheriff's contract and help out with the fire.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was,
And we can bring that back, I think that is a good conversation to have with the budget workshop.
But, okay, I'm sorry, I'm really struggling I want to understand before we move forward. We have the money sitting there. So by the end of this fiscal year, do we need to use that money or, okay, it'll just roll over to the next budget?
Yes,
So as we're negotiating this contract, it's something that can come before council.
Yeah.
That, hey, we're gonna essentially shore up the sheriffs
correct.
and make it true and right with them, because.
So one of the things that, and I'll just say this, and this is just a hypothetical, okay? Assuming the sheriff's contract comes in at an amount that is significantly more than what you're paying today, which is extremely likely, highly likely, okay? That amount will need to be paid from somewhere, okay? You're only receiving $160,000 in police money, that's not gonna go up. It'll go up a little bit each year, but not a lot. Beyond that, you have the CFD money that's available to help pay for that contract as well. Well, that's $240. Okay, so that assumes the sheriff's contract only doubles. I think it's gonna more than double. Okay. You're gonna need to make up that difference between what the ultimate amount for that contract is gonna be and what's available on an ongoing basis from the police money, 160, and the returning money from the CFD itself, which is 80 or whatever, 60 or 80. Okay. Those two amounts don't cover the whole cost, so the general fund is gonna incur that difference. Okay, that's gonna be an added cost, it's not there right now.
Got it.
Okay, so one thing I'm thinking of, and I mentioned this to the city manager, is that maybe we mitigate or temper the amount that the general fund ultimately has to pay, knowing that the CFD should have been paying in the past, using some of that each year for a number of years to lower the amount, at least for 5 years. And again, I don't like using one-time money, even for a long time, okay, knowing that it's gonna run out. Okay, but it may be appropriate, given the circumstances of why that large fund balance is in Fund 81.
Okay. I think that answers my questions, and hopefully for anyone in Zip and Delridge that's concerned, that will help answer some of their questions as well.
seems that what you're suggesting is all this money sitting there, and we just use all of it to help buy down the sheriff's contract. The problem is originally that wasn't the point of it. It was supposed to be used on fire also. So
Correct.
I think that we should also look at the fact that I believe 15 years ago, we were only giving the fire department about $24,000 a year. In my understanding, we're only giving them 28 or 30, plus the firehouse. We'd always done that. We haven't spent any there. And that's a very significant issue there. We need to be putting money there too, so it's not like we just say, oh, we'll take a little tip for $270,000. And use it on the sheriff's contract. I mean, I'm sure the sheriff's on your team on that one, but I mean, we have to look at everything, not just that.
But we did just do a grant. The city council made the choice to remodel the firehouse and those types of things as well, so it's not like there's been nothing. But I agree with you, there's a percentage I understand that could go.
And I don't disagree either, but we also have to keep in mind that we made a contract with FPD long before Zippendale was in place. And it's been an ongoing contract, it's coming out of our general fund.
It's a long-term contract.
It's a long-term contract, it ends in 5 years.
It's gonna change.
And it's gonna change, guaranteed. And at that point, then, that's gonna be the bigger discussion, how do we allocate between those two contracts? Right now, we're trying to deal with one contract, the other one's already set, and it's been historically absorbed by the city. For the whole city, everyone, including.
So the last thing that I would like to add, and just to echo Mr. Nunn's point, is that if there is monies coming out of the CFD fund, that it is called out on paper somewhere that says this went to here, this went to fire, this went to police. Is that doable?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Just for
And
peace
part-
of mind
part of the-
forward.
doing the workshops is to then get what that looks like as a council and the community. What that looks like, and then all come together and really make it happen.
Just so it's real clear, on why I put that form out for the CFP, public safety, being appropriated, although it's being elected. It's a sum of public safety, police and fire, regardless of the amount we're paying for it. Some of those two things put together is X. And if half the residents or more of this city live in Bell Bridge, that's not full, then it would make sense to do that.
I'd say a quarter, maybe,
Yeah.
at the most.
Yeah,
Well, that's
there's
important.
about 100 homes in there.
With an average of two,
Times
about 200 people out of
200
a
people.
population of 1,100.
homes?
About 100. A little less, I mean, 98.
Yeah,
it-
VR
it's
does not make up
over
half
98.
of Plymouth, but
VR is maybe 20% of Plymouth.
that's semantics, it's,
Sorry, I thought there was 400.
No,
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 Not even close.
They're correcting, just 100. He just corrected, there was just 100.
yeah,
100.
100?
yeah,
86 homes, so.
86 homes that are occupied, so,
86 are occupied,
correct,
So, okay.
yes.
my bad.
93 total.
Councilmember Cornish, what I was trying to say is during the workshop, we'll have stuff up on the screen. And we can move numbers around and it'll be all, it's all.
My feeling is we should have a workshop. But, well, kind of,
they did, this is an old budget.
yeah, well, I mean, for us. The last one.
We have 400.
Okay, Rusty.
Rusty.
I got one here, and I think I know the answer, but I'm gonna ask it. So as far as the budget goes, this is just general budget things. Anytime like the city staff and you guys talk or whatnot, you have to make a change or whatnot. And you have to amend it, you just can't do it on your own, right? Don't you have to come to the council or let us know what's going on? So there's nothing hidden or anything. Depends, okay, well.
Typically, when you have a change in staffing, which is why I include the staffing matrix in the budget itself, so I won't show you, if you have this number of positions, all that's here. When you amend that, more often than not, you gotta come back to the council to amend that, because you're adding additional costs, you know, those costs are paid for in some way, shape, or form, not necessarily all by the general fund, if it's a water superintendent or something like that. But yes, that would definitely come out. Because we're asking for additional. Spend money, additional.
So for the public works superintendent, that position was a 0.6 position already. And so what I was asking for was for that position to go from a part-time position to a full-time position. So that's why that was called out tonight, is we were moving that to a full-time position. I need someone to be able to go out into the field to keep watch, as it may, over the maintenance workers that are out in the field working. Right now, I have a lead worker that I really need to get out to the wastewater treatment plant to study and be the OIT, because right now we have AWA, who we are paying a lot of money to be our wastewater treatment plant operator, where once we have our OIT for a year, then we can have our own wastewater treatment plant operator, and we won't have to be paying AWA about 20 grand a month to be our operator.
Okay, that makes sense. And on the other items too, the thing, big ticket moves or whatever, something breaks, something blows up, that, or whatever.
I have $20,000 signing authority, so if it's in the fund, within the fund, and there's money there, I can sign for that. If it's within the fund, I can move from line item to line item. I cannot move from fund to fund.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
That I have to bring to council for authorization.
Okay,
And once a quarter, any contract that I sign, once a quarter, I bring a list to the council of the contracts I signed the previous quarter, so that the council is aware of what I'm doing.
thank you. That's all I have.
I think there's been some great questions raised and some great answers. I got a lot of my stuff answered for the meeting. I don't have anything to add to everything done and said, so I think at this point. Yeah. Go forward with the.
And just for, if you're gonna be looking for a motion, there are two items. One is adopting the resolution, or sorry. I'm sorry, I'm doing something.
Margaret, can we get on an email thread? And
What?
can we get on an email thread between us all to see what dates in April would work for a workshop?
Yeah.
For next fiscal year's budget.
Yeah, Margaret will be in touch with you
Yeah.
over that, scheduling that stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're just looking for a motion to adopt the resolution adopt the resolution 2025-04.
Right, yeah,
I apologize.
that's right. I was like, I only saw one, but maybe there's two.
I
Maybe
was
I missed it.
At the next
looking at the
item.
wrong
That's why I was like, I'll defer to you. If there's something, if I missed something, I could have missed it.
I make mistakes too.
That's okay. Okay, looking for a motion. Motion? No, there you go. No,
I was gonna make a motion to approve the resolution 2025-04, adopting the revised annual budget and fund balance projections for fiscal year 2024-25.
I second that.
Councilmember Crawford. Aye. Councilmember Colina,
Aye.
Councilmember Hornish,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Nunn.
Aye.
Mayor Emerson.
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes.
thank you, Ken staff. That was very nice. I know very long, but
Yeah.
very informative.
Yeah, we
That's
appreciate
okay.
it.
Now, what you've got questions you need to ask.
That's- This is what we do right here.
Now there's gonna be comment. conversation, and in the future, when we do the workshops, which I recommend be specific to the budget, in other words, separate council meeting, council workshop.
Yes, correct. That's usually you do those on Saturdays.
Yeah, I can do it Saturdays.
Okay, is that what you do? We can do special meetings like that? 'Cause it allows the public to get more, be more involved.
So, but it will be, the conversations will get more fluid, and information will be understood. More, that's it.
Speaking of, going pretty long, unless there's audience members here to speak on the next agenda. We have a couple representatives from the fire department here tonight, they've been quite a while, they'd like to get going home. I would suggest that we probably, maybe we get some reverse the last two items. That's the, yeah, I believe we have, John Chief waiting on in that.
We don't want to make a motion, but it is the, council's kind of needs to give some head nods so we know.
Oh, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Fine with me.
So we're going to reverse 7.2 and 7.3. So we're gonna do 7.3 next, and then we'll come back to 7.2. 7.3 is gonna be introduced and waived first reading. Read by title only ordinance of 2025-03, amending the title of chapter 8.02. The sections 8.02.010 and 8.02.030 of the Plymouth Municipal Code relating to burn regulations. And I'm going to open it up for public comment. Anyone from the public that would like to come to the podium and speak?
Can I give you a staff report
You can give me a staff report.
on this?
Let me fit. On 7.2, right?
No,
7.3.
7.3.
Oh, yeah, I know, 7.2.
We're skipping the 7.3.
7.3,
Oh, yeah,
so
7.3.
that we can deal with the.
Right.
7.3.
Okay, good, sir.
So I'm bringing this item forward, at the request of the council. And my understanding when this was last before the council was its direction was to remove the burn permit and to remove take the 10-foot, take the 20-foot back down to 10-foot. And so before you tonight is the ordinance making those changes. If I have misunderstood what the council direction was, now is the time to let me know, because I've heard from a council member that I may have misunderstood and that it was not the intention of the council to eliminate the burn permit. So we can change the ordinance tonight and it still come back at the following meeting for second reading and adoption. But we would have to make that change to the ordinance tonight. If we made the change at the next meeting, then it would have to come back for another initial first reading. So both of those changes are in the ordinance that's in your packet. We are intending to do educational information onto the website. And those are the changes in the ordinance from 20 to 10 and removing the permit, even if it's only on a temporary basis. Those are the, for the permit, those are the two changes in the ordinance.
Let's get to that. Go first, Tom. Yeah, so, some clarity, what the city manager said, I had asked her, because I thought we were doing this on two separate votes, as far as the permit and the 10-foot thing, so she put it together on one, which I'm totally fine with. I told her some of the council members might have had a concern about, you know, how we're gonna do the burn permit thing in the future. I know there's plans. My feeling is once there's something in place where people could do it online or something, easier access, if council members want to at that time come back and get that place. I don't think we need it now, we're already middle of February, people have been able to burn. And so, if we don't have that in place, I'm good with doing it just like this, the way she did it, I think is fine, I just needed clarity.
The only thing, and you touched on this and you touched on this, is that I wanted some clarification, rules, regulations, excuse me, on our website. And perhaps if feasible, you would click a box, a button in there that says, I acknowledge to adhere by these rules, so that there's some sort of, yeah,
Okay, so I guess we're just gonna roll this way, and I'll come back to public comment. At this point, since we already started the conversation, I'm the one that actually asked the question, because I thought we had, yeah, because I thought we had said permit. A free permit, not anything they had to do. That way we could actually hand them a flyer with the rules and regs, and then we know who's burning where, because if something happens, at least fire department of the city know who's. So I thought that we had put that in there as just a no permit, I mean, not no permit, but no fee permit. And then just reduce it down in size from 20 to 10. That's the way I understood it, but I could have misunderstood already, so that's why I questioned her on that, because I wasn't sure exactly.
So I'd ask her about it too, that's why I thought it was me, but, the thing with that is, what we brought up in the meeting is. No permits that I know of require people to call in anyway, like tell you the time I spent in the fire department is just, you know, if you saw smoke, someone called in. Yeah, it was a smoke check, so we wouldn't, that was brought up in the original meeting, so there wouldn't be that anyways, and my thing is, I knew Holger had some concerns about whether the people had to redo the thing or whatever. And my feeling was down the road, when she got it in place, or we did something like Colorado County Fire does, or Jackson, where people would just go on and click on, we could put that in place, but at this point, we don't have it in place, it's already the middle of February.
Right.
So that's why I would rather for now just suspend it. And we could even ask Yamaha Fire, if we could do something like that on their site, where, you know, a link to City of Plymouth if you're burning or something. They can go on and do it online, but for right now, tonight, just get to where people can start cleaning up their property. Let's go away from the permit for now, that's my opinion.
Well, I'm just saying, because we're in the process right now, instead of having to come back at a later date, it might get forgot, like everybody wants to get forgot.
Yeah.
Around here, and the next thing you know, it's like, take the few minutes to either make it right, or like I say, or just let it go. But until, and then it ends up being a button on the computer. I don't care either way, it doesn't matter to me. As long as, kind of,
I'm fine with the way it's written, I say,
I don't have a problem with it.
yeah, let's move.
Yeah.
Move on it.
Yeah. Question?
I'm fine with the way it's written. Makes sense to me.
Then, right, we've got consensus there. So now we're gonna go back to public comment. Yeah, come on up.
My name is Louis Bencourt, page 614.
Can you turn
the mic here.
But
The
Turn on
mic.
Push the button and at the base of the mic, there, the red button comes on, there you go.
Louis Bencourt, page 614, Vineyard Drive. I thought it was a done deal already, about that. Going back to the shorter distance that you go. A fire. Well, this is what I witnessed. Apparently, after it came out in the paper, the owner of the property behind the Casper's property measured it off, and he had a big bonfire going in his field right behind their home. And it was alarming too, because everything was dry, and that's what happened. I witnessed this. So when you look at this matter, I think that the bigger distance, or the most, distance you have, is gonna be the safer way to go. And the other thing is, the insurance companies are after all of us. And they're looking for ways to raise the, the cost of of doing business with them. And we should take every consideration of safety and measure, when we start going backwards, we put ourselves in jeopardy. That's what I want to say.
So,
Go ahead.
we're not supposed to really go back and forth, so. By the way this is written, it's a 10 by 10 section with a 4 by 4 burning area.
Okay.
That's as big as it goes, so if they do a big bonfire, they've broken the law just by that,
Yeah,
by itself. So it's a 10 by 10 clear space.
But here's my thing. When I looked out there and I saw that fire going.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wow, is this what the new law is or what?
Right.
And I didn't think it was safe.
You know,
It's my, okay,
I was just gonna say, anytime you see a fire that's a concern, I would immediately just call the fire department. They're fantastic about coming out and evaluating
Yep.
or shutting people down who are doing something reckless. I don't think that the 10 foot or the burn permit is gonna prevent people from doing things they're not supposed to.
Well, and here it was, next to a residential area.
Right,
He had that whole field out there to do.
So is this, okay, sorry for
Go ahead.
clarification. Was this on a rural piece that was not in the city?
It was a field right behind there. The owner,
There's a right to ag, there's a right to burn, and that has different laws. So the city, it's outside the city limit, we can't do anything about it anyways, so that would be a call to the fire department.
and
If it was out.
they could judge it whether or not.
Right, that if it
Correct.
was safe or not safe, yeah,
Well, that came out shortly,
right.
after there was some discussion in the newspaper.
could we maybe have the fire department come up and address some of these
Yeah.
questions? Would you guys mind coming up and addressing?
Well,
Thank
No problem.
you,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Ashley and I, fire prevention officer with the Amador Fire. Just to speak to some of those questions. Absolutely agree with you, Ms. Cranford, that if you have concerns, if the burn looks too large or too close or whatever, the safe bet is always just to call it in. Somebody will come out, whether it's Amador Fire, CAL FIRE, and evaluate the burn pile, make sure that it's within its respective parameters. If it's a large burn pile, they have to have a large burn pile permit, and it has to be through Air District and CAL FIRE. Right now in the winter time is there's a little bit of variance. It's just through Air District during the winter. CAL FIRE and Amador Fire don't have parameters necessarily to tell people they can't burn. Because it is open burning season. Once May comes around and the burn proclamation is put into place, then, there's different burn days and all that kind of stuff. But, I guess to sum that up, yeah, calling it in is going to be your best bet. And if you believe it's too close and safe, so et cetera, we're always happy to come check.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, of course.
What would be the best phone number for non-emergency calling?
So, 911 is always going to be the easiest. And right as soon as they answer, you can say this is not an emergency, and they have their protocol to navigate that. We have a lot of people that call either the stations or even our headquarter offices. And if it's something like this where we're gonna send a fire crew out anyways, all we're gonna do is transfer you to dispatch, or we're gonna call it in for you. So really easy. I mean, dispatch has a non-emergent line, but I think all encompassing, and Chief Evelyn could probably speak better to that process, but I believe calling 911 is your best option.
You can also call the sheriff's department directly, the 223, I think it's 6550. And they will, on a non-emergency situation, and then they will route you into dispatch in the right way.
I just know that some folks are hesitant of calling 911 when they
Agreed.
realize it's not an emergency and then
Yeah.
what do I do?
I would call the sheriff's department gets all 911 calls in the county, and then they dispatch out to the different entities. So you could call the sheriff's department directly,
Thank you.
It's 6500,
6500, thank you.
223 6500.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any written public comment?
No.
That I would entertain a motion.
Well, one thing that you need for you and you, Margaret, there's an error on this. If you look on the front page, what we're looking for, and most of them have this, is only allowing burning down in the city, the 4x4 piles between 6 in the morning and noon. The reason for that is, smoke dissipate. You have that on the front, the 6 AM to 12 PM, and then in the back, under C, you have it listed as 6 PM to midnight.
I thought that too.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And I think legally, I don't know Frank's opinion on that. I think we need that, you need to make some kind of change to that, for it to vote on or what, I don't know, whatever you think.
Yeah, the usual.
We want it 6 AM to noon, yes.
What do you say?
So,
It's a typo.
There's a typo, but
Yeah,
it needs to be corrected.
Yeah, we can, we would just,
Read it in.
we would just,
Just what-
approve the ordinance as presented, like that direction to make that change.
Perfect.
And you want it to be noon in both instances or midnight?
No, 6 AM to noon
Okay,
is what it should have read.
okay.
Well, with that correction, I make a motion to approve the ordinance.
Yeah, look at page 2 of the staff report, there's a recommendation at the very end. Make a motion to
Okay.
introduce and.
Introduce and waive the first reading and read by title only ordinance 2025-03, amending the title of chapter 8.02 and sections 8.02.010 and 8.0.030 of the Plymouth Municipal Code related to burn regulations
With that amendment.
with that amendment.
Okay.
The time.
Councilmember Cranford. Aye. Councilmember Florina.
Aye.
Councilmember McCormish.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dunn.
Aye.
Mayor Amoruso.
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes.
Does anyone need a break?
The other thing I was gonna ask, Chief Evan, so he felt he wants to, did you want to give a report tonight or were you standing by? No, I didn't know if you came to do that.
If you guys, it's too late now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, he was telling me that he'd come to give a report, and I was like, oh, wait till the end.
Yes or no? No.
You don't have to, no, I just didn't know if you were waiting.
No, public comment in the-
We'd have to agendize that where he gets to come up in general.
Right, yeah, just, general comment at the beginning.
All right. We only have that one thing.
I know, let's do it.
Let's do it and go.
It's all right. All right, we're gonna jump into 7.2. Resolution 2025-05, awarding the construction contract and authorizing the city manager to execute the contract with John Allard Construction in the amount of $250,120 for the McGee Park renovation project and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute contract change orders in aggregate amounts not to exceed 21,512.
So the McGee Park renovation project started
Many years.
years ago. And it went out to RFP and bid opening was on January 14th. The low bid was originally LGM Construction, but they withdrew their bid, so it went down to John Allen Construction for $215,120. The grant is for $177,000. And so I'm asking for $59,632 to be paid out of TOT fund. And so the resolution would be for authorizing the execution of the contract with John Allen for the park, and then a second portion was for the TOT funds. The project is a long time coming. We've worked really hard to get it to this place. There was a lot of community outreach on this, for these grant funds. There would not be time to try to come up with a different project. This doesn't even include all the landscape that was originally set for the project. This only includes the hardscape for the project, which is the concrete work. I am recommending the project for approval. I think it will make a big difference to the park. And I can answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Margaret. What are the total funds available in the TOT program right now?
Almost 300,000.
Okay, for those $300,000. Is there anything else earmarked?
Nothing.
Nothing, okay, so you don't really see anybody, like a large sum coming out this fiscal year, assuming it is.
I do not. I haven't heard of anything coming in.
The 15,000 for high school rodeo.
Yeah,
That's already,
that's already gone.
that's already been paid out.
Okay,
Yes,
Sorry.
and I've heard that the vendors are gonna come forward as well. But that's also 15 ever. So the grant was for $177,000. Was there any other grant that would help with the not hardscape going forward?
I will probably be looking for another grant to do the landscaping. Weber Geo is working on the RFP, they're finalizing it right now for the landscaping. Once I get that, I'll have a better idea of where to go to look for a grant for the landscaping.
Yeah. So, Don?
I'm good.
okay. I did a little research, as I do. I'm a little concerned about the spread between our lowest bid and the lump in the middle. Here's why, in my own experience working with contractors. Some of them are super transparent and give you every detail down to the screw that they're gonna use.
Itemized.
Yep, and then others conveniently leave things out for change order situations. So I know that John Allen did our speed hump. And I am curious what his bid was and then what his end payment was and the gap there.
I don't know specifically,
Mhm.
had I known the question earlier, I could have.
I'm
looked
sorry.
that up. I do know that Weber Geo has worked with John Allen before. And they are very comfortable with his bid. Because I had that conversation.
Okay.
But I don't know the answer to your question specifically, but I do know that Weber Geo is comfortable with their bid and the prices that they had on items.
Okay. Following that would just be our margin for error on this is like almost zero. 21,000 is nothing for this type of project, so that my concern just is, oh man, if we get into this and there's a big problem. Cause you're pouring concrete, so then you're stuck, right? So, I guess. I just wanted to bring it up to council and have get people's input on that gap difference there. And that really narrow margin for error with any foreseeable things that could come up.
I guess, there's nothing that you can shield yourself from a change order, correct? I mean, things can happen.
Well, some contractors, that's why some of these contracting bids might be so much higher, is because they're doing that. They're going, there could be this, or there could be that, and if John Allen hasn't done that. The hope would be that like some of these bids might come, or the ultimate payment would come in a little bit lower. But
Margaret, have you seen the scope of the project as a line item? Or a breakout perhaps from John Allen Construction?
I did look at their bid and it didn't seem unreasonable to me. But I'm not a contractor.
Right.
But Weber Geo, who sees bids on a daily basis, didn't seem to think it was unreasonable.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'll add that. Anytime you contract with public contractors, there's always that possibility, so there's no way you can rule that out. Some of them do play games. Under the public contract code, we're obligated to bid under state law to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. So, this is just background context, in the private market, you can kind of wheel and deal and. Figure out, okay, that person's lower, but I don't think it's gonna be as good quality. In this public works context, you're limited to the lowest responsive bidder. And the only way you cannot go with them under state law, because the legislative theory behind this is. We want cities to be frugal in expenditure of their private funds. So the only way you can not award the lowest responsive is if you ding them for saying they are non-responsible. And that's a fairly significant finding you make. They are entitled to some due process as well. To respond, so I'm not saying it doesn't happen, I'm just saying. We'd have to either find that there was something in the bid was not responsive to what we asked for, or we have to deem for non-responsibility. So my point is, there are some constraints on our discretion in that respect. Yeah.
I will say that in making some phone calls and doing some research, I heard. And from some very reliable sources that John Allen was a truck to construction company, so I don't have concerns there.
He was or wasn't.
Is a reliable construction company. He's smaller, he's on the smaller side, which could be part of why his bid is lower as well. He doesn't have the same crew size.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I didn't hear anything negative, and in doing research on Yelp and BBB and all of those different things, I didn't find anything except one negative, and there's always gonna be one. So as far as that goes, I was fine. I'm not sure how many public works projects he's done, and I just don't want us to get in a mess down the road.
Well, it's hard, because you also guys are coming in new,
Sure.
because you weren't part of that process.
Sure.
Like we beat it up for years,
Right.
and it was a Sunday,
Oh, no,
Nausea.
I trust I trust
the process.
I trust that where we are now is completely fine. I'm literally just talking about the bids. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Very fair.
And I'll get you an answer to that question.
That's fine.
I just got a quick catching up with all this, so the grant that's been applied, if this doesn't get voted and approved. Chances are the grant's gonna go away because there's no project designated for it, correct?
Correct. We
Okay.
just wouldn't apply for reimbursement.
Oh, okay. Along with this, that answers that real good. and this might be off base or whatnot, but I know there are several areas within the city of Plymouth. Has like Lodge Hill been looked at for anything or to help get that up and running?
You just opened a camp.
That's part of the question.
Easy now, Randy.
Okay,
I know it's.
so with
And
this,
just do a brief answer, because Wadsworth's not on the agenda.
with this grant, originally it was gonna be split into half to Lodge Hill, half to McGee Park, and then it was all gonna go to Lodge Hill. And then it all got transferred back to
Okay.
McGee Park.
Okay, so there's some thought on Lodge
So
Hill, please.
moving forward, I will be looking for something for up there.
That's perfect, thank you.
Were you done with it?
Yeah.
I'm done.
I just,
Yeah, I'm done.
I just have one quick question, it might have got addressed and I missed it, I don't know, I'm asking it again. Is 10% a standard or our standard overage for on the change orders? We do that on, is that pretty much standard on every contract?
That's the standard since I've been here.
Okay. Don't take that, I was just curious about it.
It's different, every place is different, some go less percentage the larger the project gets. Cause like 10% on the million is different than 10% on 50,000.
Yeah.
So the 10% does seem to be kind of a standard that you see in other cities, for example.
If a change order came in that was over 21K, you would just have to bring it to council. Okay. What, no, we're approving 21.
21,512, and it's 10% of that.
For signing authority is 20,000, but you're pre-approving up to 21,000 change orders.
Thank you for
Yeah.
the clarification.
Okay, now I'm gonna open up for public comment. And anyone out that would like to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, was there any written?
No.
Then at this point, then I guess I'm looking for a motion.
I first wanna thank the prior city council. For all their hard work on this. I know this was a very long and strenuous process with a whole lot of opinions. So I just wanna thank them for their work on it. And with that said, I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2025-05, awarding a construction contract and authorizing the city manager to execute the contract with John Allen Construction in the amount of $215,120 for the McGee Park renovation project and authorizing the city manager to negotiate contract change orders in an aggregate amount not to exceed $21,512. Authorize the use of $177,000 in grant funding from the California Drought, Water, Parks, Climate, Coastal Protections and Outdoor Access for all of Act 2018 and up to $59,632 in TOT fund revenues to pay for the remainder of the project and any overages.
Give a second.
Councilmember Crawford.
Aye.
Councilmember Kaliya.
Aye.
Councilmember Hornish.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Nunn.
Aye.
Mayor Aversa.
Aye.
Thank you, motion
My
passes.
God, that's over.
You're not done yet?
No, that's over.
Oh.
It's been going on for years, like 5 years.
Well, yeah.
Get her done.
Okay, so now we're gonna move on to number 8, council staff communications, brief reports, manager report,
I just have a couple things.
brief.
Yes. I wanted to report back because the question was asked about the trail from Zimpendale Ridge to Bush Street. The estimated cost from Caltrans was $300,000. And they are looking to start on the rest of the trail in mid-April. So there's the questions to your answers, the answers to your questions, Vice Mayor. And then I got notice from AWA this past week that they are looking at doing a new rate study to increase their rates once again.
Who?
And then reminding us that there is a 5% increase coming on July 1st. So, I will make sure that our rate study people know both of those pieces of information.
Okay, I wasn't being an out. Who was it, the water agency?
AWW.
Okay, I missed that part.
I'm sorry, yes, AWW.
That's why I said who, I'm like, who?
Oh, I thought,
I thought you were like, ooh.
I thought you said,
no,
yeah, I was
no.
like, ooh. Now, that's what the rest of us were doing.
We were agreeing with the who.
Yeah. I was like, what?
that's all.
If I hear that right? Alright, so I've got nothing really to report. We had a meeting today with the sheriffs, seemed really productive, seemed like a very positive meeting. Nothing really to report out from that, just, so the team involving, volleyball.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, so. Yeah, let's shout out. What was heard? Sheriffs, other than that, anything else. So, honestly, so, Rusty. Oh,
Do you have a council?
do you have anything to say?
I have no report for me.
Or future agenda items, anything?
I'll be brief. We attended the League of Cities event in January, and I just wanted to share a few takeaways from that event. I have 3 here. So one was building a strong and trusting relationship with your city manager is paramount. So that was a huge takeaway for me. Allowing for transparency in your city is extremely important, even when things may be that you're being transparent about may be difficult and could bring criticism of the council and city staff. Going forward and not trying to silence your critics essentially is very important. There's so much to learn and understand, and it's important to make connections with people who can help you on your journey. So I think that those were my big takeaways from that event. And then I also just want to congratulate and welcome Rusty to our council. I have no doubt that he'll serve the citizens of Plymouth well. And I'm gonna just save my next thing for next time. Keep you all on the edge of your seats.
Wow.
I think that's it. Yeah, League of Cities was awesome and a little monotonous at times, lots of legal jargon. So, but other than that, yeah, it was good.
Your next one. Oh, I will second what you were saying, that with the exception that in my feedback to them online was that I wish they had a couple of breakout sessions because networking over lunch, not really ideal, but networking at a cocktail hour. No, but to rather have a breakout session dedicated. And then I stumbled across an email from Cal Cities today that they rolled out a new fire hazard map. If anybody has looked at that yet, City of Plymouth, we're still good to go, quote unquote. We have not been deemed higher risk than normal or before. Not until you get to Albemarle County, it's when they we designated them. So I would implore everybody to go check it out, function your address. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Welcome, Rusty.
Yes, welcome. Good?
Yeah.
Okay.